Welcome to this new module. Now I want to talk about scales of space. And the organization or orchestration of time. I don't know a simpler title. We will see how it works out as an input. So we already mentioned this book of Ishigami. He called that book Another Scale of Architecture. And he addresses the topics of today. It's about, and we want to have that as well, it's environment, and health. So, and this book is a kind of climatics of space. So with all the topics of today, and the chapters are, we discussed it already, clouds, forest, horizon, sky, and rain. So, and we want to focus on that. It's a good indicator of, I think, what is at stake today, and gives a nice framing of the intention of this lecture. So I'm always puzzled. So this is a tree, and it took me some 50 years to realize, and that's astonishing, to realize that trees are not growing from the ground, but from the air. So to grow, they take the CO2 of the, so that's a substance, CO2, and put that into hydrocarbon, which is the wood and metal. And this is from the air. And they only take the water from the ground. And they take the radiation of the sun with photosynthesis, we will have that later, to get the energy to grow. Yeah? And the substance of wood is from the air, not from the ground. The interesting thing is, and it's fascinating, so they really want to be a tree, and that is a kind of fascinating, they want to take space. And why is it like that we always think it's from the solid ground? So, and we will focus on these questions. So, and as a summary with the scales of space. So we introduced 3 different numbers, which are always developed in time, because numbers are at stake in time with calculation and so on. This is what we call at night. So always running in circle at home at night and counting. So and we had, and they are the nature or the substance or the mediality of space at the. So this is what you have when you leave your house at the new sunrise and explore the space outside at day. So on these numbers, we know that 3 different scales of numbers, I would say, just to read this if you want. So we had the rational numbers, and the rational number is A divided by B. And we simply say, okay, it's 2 by 3. These are two integers or 2 whole numbers, and just bring them into relation to a proportion. That's not what it is about. So just to give you the nature of all this. So this is always that you have a circle, and you cut this circle. So and then you say, I want to have 3 parts out of 8. And then you have 3 by 8. So therefore, and as we read it, so we count, and these partitions, this is A, and this is time. This is what we can see. It's the eye of time. Whereas the unit here is a speciality, and that's space. That's a unit. So numbers always put space and time into proportion. So this was 500 BC. It doesn't matter, it's nothing, just tick. And we had the architecture with Vitruvius. This is 100 BC. So that's a certain scale of space. So we went then to the real numbers. So today we say it's a real numbers. This is 1400 AC, and we know that with Alberti in architecture. So what happens with the real numbers, we call it today, but what happens around in Renaissance with these fractions here, they put it into so-called polynomials, which means they say it's how can we do that? So it's a cardinal number C0 plus C1 by x powers 1 plus C2 multiplied x powers 2 plus C3 x3 and so on. And it's a polynomial. And they have 2 different kinds of numbers. They have these C. These are rational numbers. And they have a lot of them, an infinite series of that. And they multiply it with the self-reference of a variable with the so-called ordinal numbers. So they are integers, partitions. So therefore, these ordinal numbers are, if you have C n by x n, then the C corresponds to time, to space. And then you have a partition. This is my hypothesis, which is the n. This corresponds to time. This again. So, and then in 19th century, we start to call that real numbers and have a certain arithmetic software. So that's, I think these are the numbers of that kind. And again, you have partitions, and you have space, a whole. And put that into relation, into proportion. And now, from 1900 on, this is when we entered a new space with a certain notion of numbers. This is today. We have the complex numbers. And the complex numbers is a real number plus a real number multiplied with the imaginary unit. And the imaginary is I. The imaginary unit is a circle. And this says I multiplied I no, this is not I, this is 1. I powers 0 equals 1. If I put I powers 1 equals I by 2 times equals minus 1. So this is 0, 1, I, 2, I, 3. So if I go I powers 3 is minus I, we are here, and I powers 4 equals 1 again. So, and that's a rotation. And we again have space and time. A partition, so we have space and time. So I would say these are the 3 scales we observe. So this is the numbers. They are developed in time, and they are the nature of space, or the substance of space, or the mediality of space. Yeah. This, I think, is important as a setup. It's about the scales. So they have this, so they don't compete. They simply have, this is another view, yeah, because it's of time. So this is this is what you see with the eyes of time. Good. Yeah. With all these phases, we develop in our culture, we developed a new kind of architecture. So we got a new scale of space, always more powerful, more complex, and by that more powerful. And this was domesticated by a new kind of architecture. So that's the hypothesis. Good. Now let's continue. If we are with space and time, if this is plus time, so this is future, and this is minus time, and this is the past. If this is plus space, then this is inner space. And this is minus space, this is the outer space. Space outside, or negative space. So we talked about that we are able to rotate. And from from the old beginning, our culture on, we give names to these quadrants. We said, this is the air. This corresponds to the fire. This corresponds to the earth. And this corresponds to the water. We said, this is a perspective projection to go from the space, which is circular, to the linearity of time, circularity of space, linearity of minus time. So again, perspective projection, and we said there's a stereographic projection here, and there's another stereographic projection here. So we can say, I'm not sure, this is minus and this is minus, because they move towards minus space and they move towards minus time. And this is plus, because it moves to space and it moves to the future. These two have been discussed in the prior module. So, we said this property, just to make the links. This is sunrise, and this is sunset. This is day, and this is night. Good. We have that. Now, with our tree. Photosynthesis. This is very, very simple. You can look it up in detail. So we have energy from the sun plus water plus CO2 goes to hydrocarbon. This is the wood. How do we go? It's CH2O. And a lot of them. This is gas, food, and wood, and all this organic stuff. Plus O2 plus water. If you make it clear, the water here is only one water. So this is photosynthesis. So, and this complex here has a lot of energy bound. And this is what the tree is doing, growing from its substance from the CO2. It's a C, carbon. So, therefore, what we see here at sunrise with the air, this is the flora. So it's growing and exploring space. So what is at the sunset, at the opposite thing is, this is flora. What all the animals do, fauna. They take hydrocarbon, they eat it, and this goes to H2O plus CO2 plus energy. This is the fauna. So therefore we have this, like here, sunset, sunrise, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. And we got a balance between flora and fauna on this energetic level. So that's quite interesting. So, yeah. So if we have problems to understand or to appreciate that the trees are growing from the air, This is because we are mammoths. We just eat from the ground and not from the earth and not from the air. I find that very interesting to see. Good. We have in technique, just to introduce two more conceptions. This is what we call a machine. Like a windmill. So this is driving from the air, from the outside. So, and this here is a motor, a steam engine. So you put in some wood or some coal or some gas, and then it drives. That's an engine. So, or we had it before. On this side, there's architecture. And on this side, there's engineering. Architecture talks with the ears of the space. Therefore, I don't think it's good to do drawings today. Whereas engineering, with the diagrams, we had it with Kuhlmann here, with these diagrams, they look with the eyes of time and balance it toward balance their structures towards the end of time, which minus gravity. So that's this. Now go and look for the kind of energy we are thinking of, because that's the substance, or it depends on the scale, we think. So if we are looking like this and want to put these things into a line, then this circle goes like a helix. We have an axis over time, and then we cover space for our arguments. So to make it like that, we simply say this is the rational numbers, these are the real numbers, and these are the complex numbers. And these are levels of abstraction. We call that notion of space 1, notion of space 2, notion of space 3. So here, there was 4 as 0. We can argue that, but it will not help. We simply say, we said we emancipate space from things with this abstraction. This abstraction is time from space. And this abstraction is, I would say, life from time. This is what I experienced today. Again, this is 19 AC, 14 AC, 5 BC, and this is very early. So, the levels of energy. If we take space from things, the energy on this level had been with the things. So we take energy from the things, from space. And this is with wood. So we burn wood because it's with the things. here we start to learn deal with time, which means we start to learn to burn coal. So this is encapsulated space. So we don't burn the speciality of things, so cut a tree and burn it, or so, but we dig capsules of time. We go for the parameters of things. We understand how fire works and have a more detailed understanding, and we dig the ground to go and to go to earlier time and then get all these things, and we are able to clean it. Of course, the people in antique, they knew there is coal and that it's burning, but it had been super dirty, or it had been toxic. And we learned to go to the parameters of things, the development of things and time, and to clean the coal and then burn them. So this is about burning in time. So today it's radiation. Just the radiation from the sun. So we start to emancipate from time. We start to emancipate from all these capsules of time, this physicality of things, and go to the vividness of these things, because we understand how radiation from the sun works. And of course, coal is 100 times more energy available here, and there's thousands of times more energy available with radiation directly from the sun. So if we are afraid of running out of coal, this simply means we argue in the wrong abstraction. As you know, it's 10,000 times more radiation from the sun than mankind is using as energy. So therefore we simply have to switch our understanding of what energy is. So with the new sunrise. So these are different sunrises in the different scales of space. And then we get more powerful. So like the trees are doing, you can do exactly the same thing with photosynthesis. It takes a radiation of the of the sun with photosynthesis, then do electrolysis on that, and just synthesize hydrocarbon. So the efficiency is not superb, but it doesn't matter because it's a lot. You can synthesize these things. Good. We have this. Now, we went with Alberti how to take space. So we said this is a module. Then we rise and do a column. So we have module, 0D. We go from ground. So this is the flow of time, OR, it's our capital. And then we do a column. This is 1D. Then these are the conceptions of Alberti. We go to the wall, 2D, and we go 3D to the roof. There are no more principal conceptions in Alberti. In these writings, rewriting the truths. And this is at stake, what I think has to be done today. So there's nothing more. And he takes space, as he said. So, and what we have with Ichigami is the environment. And of a certain scale. So today we simply say this is our environment, or this is what we call nature, and so on. Health. These are the topics we want to talk about. How to qualify these space. Therefore, it's very important that we make these steps anchored with energy, associated with our conceptions of environment and health, and link that to these abstractions of numbers, of abstractions in our in mathematics and in our cultural heritage. So that's the setup. So the question is, what is it? What is a medium of this space if it is of today a quantum space? Good. So therefore, the new understanding of what nature is. So this fascinosum, because we start even with these formulas, they had been developed here to make this kind of chemistry. Organic chemistry starts around 1920, that we are able to synthesize these things and make it by ourselves. So the same is photovoltaic. It's 1920. Principally to be able to synthesize nature, to bypass nature. So then take this principal source, endless stream of radiation from the sun, to bypass nature, to get into contract. So we don't have to consume nature. We simply have to start to contract nature, to bypass it, and we can coexist with nature. We don't have to use it. Because these spaces, they don't collide. Just another conception of it, which is more abstract and more powerful. Good. So what we expect here, if we say this is space 1, space 2, space 3, then there is a time 1. Yeah, you see. Time 1, time 2. So on the opposite side. Go now for how we what we can read with Alberti. If we are in time, Alberti established space 2, where time was emancipated decoupled from space as an extra entity in the terms we are discussing today. Time is of this notion, which means we are in the number space of the real number. Okay, now we had it with this time the night sky, and we move on Earth, it's flatland. So, and what we are doing here is we take a position and we have these two conceptions, branching and boundaries. We take a boundary and we partition this boundary. In time, we always partition. So we partition this boundary. And we have a city. Cities Schwarzenberg. So this is how Alberti talks about cities, interestingly. And as we had the module, the column, the wall, and the environment, talking in conceptions of space, so with the ear of space, Alberti says, he calls that location. He would say this environment. I would say landscape today. Location. He takes this as a conception, he says area or region. Then he puts these buildings, elements of space, within the city, and he calls that compartiment, compartition. So location, area, compartition. And within compartition, he has a fourth conception, and this is the actual human. So these are the four concepts with the eyes of time. So this is time with Alberti. The interesting is there is not. I don't think there's more. Of course, then there's a lot of details and a lot of stories, episodes, or tutorials about how to do a wall and how to get into proportions of the column and so on. But the principal concept is there. And as he doesn't make a distinction between walls or a series of columns, or there's no conception about the window or the door, no print. So this is not the primary conceptions he is using. He simply says module, column, wall, and roof. There's no distinction between roof or floor. So here, in my reading, it's very similar. You have the location, you have the area, the compartment, and you have the human. So if we go then with our conceptions, you have location, you have the area, here's the compartition, and you have the human. And if you look how he is discussing that, there are these pairs. So we have this pair, and we have this pair. And in today's conceptions, we would say this is the environment. Yeah, environmental, and this is about health. So there's always, it's going down, And the environment should be healthy, the competition should be healthy for the human. And you partition so the area should be healthy within a location. So in our readings, this is the flora. And this is fauna associated with that. Time, space. So you have this space. You see these principal drawings. This is about the health. This is a map. And this takes space. This orchestrates time in the way we had seen with the growth of the fungi, the petri disk. So these are traces of time, of growth, and they should be. This is healthy, then it grows properly. And this is environmental. It takes space. This orchestrates time. This takes space. And we are out, in, out, in. So it's an inversion, in, out, how these arguments are. This is flat, this is upward. So it's very important that we don't mix this ideal city of Villarete. We don't mix it here with Salinan of Ledoux. We don't mix it with, for example, the map of Barcelona. These are developments where the whole setup is understandings of cities, where the whole setup is just the inverse. So in our time, my hypothesis, we are at stake is to develop a new notion of space, whereas starting with Ledoux, ending with Barcelona, I forgot the name, they are developing another notion of 18th, 19th century, they're developing a notion of time. Then I would say this is about urbanism, and this is about the city. So therefore, here, this is the city on space, notion of space, and then the whole story is different. So it works from this. So don't mix it up. That's our setup here. So we have the module, the column, the environment, the roof. This is with the eyes of the space, with the ears of the space, with the eyes of time. We have location, area, city, competition, building, human, or the body. These are the conceptions. So there are two other conceptions. It's called the ornament and the lineament. So we would say this is a construction. Or prominent now, the movement of the robots. On building side, very prominent. And the lineament is about the form, the resulting form. So this in principle works in time, at night, And lineament is, this is in space what we can see at day. So we had this Petri disk, then this fungi, and I would say a very prototype rows of form. So this is a branching. Huh? We are always with the bounds and with branching with the help. So it's just branches. So this is a construction. How to get a certain form. And we discussed it in detail with this with students, civil engineering. So therefore, this is the ornament, and this is the lineament in my reading. So, two other conceptions on how to do buildings. The last one is here. If we go here, we had with the gnomon, we said this column is, so we go up with the shadow of the sun. This is the orthographia. Which is a dead body in space. So it's in space and not in time. Whereas a shadow is not in space, but in time. So it's like a ghost, what you can see. And this is called ichnographia. So, orthographia, ichnographia. So the interesting is that they put this to volume to show this, the circularity of time. No, yeah, the circularity of time. And they, to make it physiologically straight, there's a curvature always in the floor, but that you see it straight, so to make it a shadow, to get rid of any, to make it of any space. So they made a huge effort to make it slightly curved, so that you think it's absolute straight, which means you put out the body, and by that it's pure flat, and that's ethnography. So just what you see, and this is what you hear. So, and they put that into proportion, and I think the symbolization of that are these diagonals of the roof, the third one. So it's 1, 2, 3 with the roof, and then you get the ratio, which is your mind, and this is called the symbolization. Third concept. To bring the things in proportion. So I think these few conceptions, you have the module, the column, the wall, and the roof. Space, time, location, area, compartment, human body. which is symmetries and inversions, like here. Environment, which is very popular today, and health, or safety and security. Then how to do things, ornament and lineament, and how to bring that into proportion to a ratio in an architectonic way. So you can make any ornament, any lineament. If you don't harmonize these things with ratio, for describing that, you need this conception of orthographia, ethnographia, and scenographia, which exactly plays a game of space and time, and bringing that into proportion with a certain language. So that's, I think, is what I wanted to show in this module. Looking forward for discussions.